I find inside me the source of the power, fulfill all my soul, redeeming the fire, the waters, the winds, a spiral that will lead to the roots of the forces of nature. I find inside me the source of the power, fulfill all my soul, redeeming the fire, the waters, the winds, a spiral that will lead to the roots of the forces of nature. I find inside me the sources of nature. I find inside me the source of the fire, the waters, the soul, the spiral that will lead to the roots of the earth. The forces of nature.
Welcome, welcome. That was The Forces of Nature by Triumph Life Center Music. You can find that on our playlist at Triumph uh, Life Center Music Ministry or on any other digital platform. So, welcome as we get started this morning. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad to be here. Just give me a moment as we get set up and get ready to go. How are you doing this morning? It's Saturday morning, October 26th. Oh, awesome, awesome month of October that we've had. Exciting. And here at Triumph, and we're looking to see and experience so much more. So just gather together your morning bagel, your coffee, your tea, your juice, and get comfortable. We are getting started to take off. We have a real exciting a lesson that we're going to be sharing with you. So just hold on a second, and as we others are coming in, and we're getting ready to share this awesome experience with each of you. So just one moment as we prepare to go. How are you doing today? So far, so good. Glad to hear that. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that all is well, and you're enjoying this beautiful Saturday. Um, whether you're on the East Coast, if you're on the East Coast, it's still kind of early, or if you're on the West Coast, um, it's a little bit after 1 o'clock here today. So we want to just breathe in as we begin our journey on today. Just breathe in. As I said, get comfortable. If you're watching us on YouTube, I would ask you to just hit like and share. Would you do that? So others would know that we're here. We'll be here about about 30 minutes or so. Not that long because it's Saturday. We know everyone wants to go about their daily activities. So just hit like and share. Sit back, get comfortable, and let's begin. So again, welcome to today's gathering, to our seminar that we're sharing today on uh, spiritual intelligence. And this seminar is sponsored by Triumph School of Integral Studies. This is the first of a four-part series with, as we begin today to introduce to you what is spiritual intelligence? Why is spiritual intelligence important to know about? How to access it and how to use it. So that's the next 4 weeks, today and the next 3 Saturdays. We'll be sharing on this topic. This series is offered as an introduction to the study of spiritual intelligence and is not meant to be a comprehensive study of the subject. Triumph School of Integral Studies, or TSIS, was founded in 2021 and is the educational arm of Triumph the Church of the New Age. TSIS's focus is on inspiring holistic living through continued learning and fostering a practical spirituality. I am Reverend Lady Mother Saundra Addison-Britto. Some of you may know me, some may not. I'm the spiritual director of Triumph the Church of the New Age and the president of the Triumph School of Integral Studies. I am also a college professor, retired, and continuing to teach part-time, and have taught in humanities and social sciences for over 17 years. I have studied, lived, and breathed the spirituality, religion, and women's issues experientially for as long as I can remember. It's always been a part of my life's journey. But academically for over 25 years. In this first lesson, let me share with you what we will be focusing on. Our first topic is to help you understand what is spirituality. What is spiritual intelligence, I should say. You may have an idea of spirituality, but do you know or have you heard of the phrase spiritual intelligence? There's a lot out there circulating in cyberspace, a lot of woo kinds of conversations about this subject, and I leave it up to you, the listener, the viewer, to do your due diligence in interrogating what information sources are out there. That's on you to do. But in order for me to outline this lesson over the next 4 weeks, we must first answer a few basic questions, which I intend to do today, that will provide the framework for this entire series. So first, what is spirit? Having an idea of what spirit is, which is a part of this idea of spiritual intelligence, is vital to just interrogating and understanding what spiritual intelligence is. Next, what is intelligence? Something we're probably very familiar with, but what is it? It may not be what we think it is. And then putting those two together, what is spiritual intelligence? That's the heart of this lesson. So these 3 questions we'll seek to chase after today, this morning, and hopefully will lay a foundation for the studies that will continue next week and the 2 weeks after. So the word spirit in the Hebrew and Christian biblical tradition is ruach, R-U-A-C-H, pronounced ruach, meaning breath or life, or wind. I'm sorry, life too, but breath or wind. Breathe, breath here meaning the essence of life itself. When we are born, we inhale, independent of our mothers, and intake our first breath. Sometimes the doctor has to slap the baby on the buttocks and massage its heart or its body in order to get it to inhale its first breath that's independent of its mother. When we die, we exhale and release our last breath. In between these 2 moments, we continuously breathe in and out. As we begin today, I want to just ground this in our breath. As we pause a moment to just notice the breath. Inhaling and exhaling. Like the wind, ruach, or spirit, as breath is dynamic. It is continuously flowing even when it appears to be still or we are not paying attention to it. As we breathe, there is a pause, though, between the inhale and the exhale. In that pause, we are, for a nanosecond, and that's 1 billionth of a second, suspended between life and death. Ooh, I bet you didn't know that. Between our mortal existence and our eternal essence. Most of us go about our daily lives and we pay no attention to the breath. Unless it is somehow hindered. It is in those moments that we become acutely aware of our own mortality and how fragile one's life is. We're just one exhale away from not being here. Let me share with you one of my favorite authors and scholars, Michael Lerner, who is the Jewish rabbi, scholar, social activist. In his book, Spirit Matters, he defines spirit as the following, and I quote, as the aspect of reality that cannot be quantified or subjected to repeated observations. As the aspect, let me say that again, of reality that cannot be quantified or subjected to repeated observations. Meaning this, it cannot be studied vis-a-vis the scientific method. Although it is, and we'll talk about that more next week. An interesting paradoxical phenomena. Further, Alice Walker, another one of my favorite authors, poets, writers, scholars, social activists, in her book, In Search of Our Mother's Garden, she talks about spirit as she paints this picture of what it was like, if we can imagine, to be a black enslaved woman. A black woman enslaved in this country, and what it was like for black women who were the descendants of formerly enslaved black women, but not yet free themselves. Walker writes, and I quote, they forced their minds to leave their bodies as their spirits sought to rise but fell. She describes spirit in this way. She says it's that unknown thing within them. That thing that could not and would not be bound. That thing that the enslaved bodies and minds sought to find expression for, but could not. That thing that often catapulted them into what others defined as madness. Gone crazy. Walker further says, and I'm quoting her here, black women's spirituality was so intense, so deep, so unconscious, that they were themselves unaware of the richness they held. In other words, when I think about this, I think the miracle of the continued existence of black women and black people in this country, if I base it on what I hear Walker saying when she shared that they have not all perished in the wilderness. We all should have died. We should not have survived that long travail of slavery, post-slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, and KKK, and every other oppressive part of this system, white supremacy that we are dealt with in these United States of America. Why have we survived? I think Walker would argue, and I agree, because of the unknown thing within that she calls spirit. Or as Lerner asserts, that aspect of reality that cannot be quantified. It's there, but the magnitude of it cannot be measured. Not in the ways that we traditionally try to measure phenomena. So, what is spirit? In this series, our working definition of spirit is, and let me just qualify this parenthetically by saying that I don't like giving definitions because definitions is like building walls around an idea or concept. It's like putting up a gate post and limiting something. And how do you limit something that's so dynamic? You really can't. But in terms of trying to, in our finite minds, conceptualize what I'm talking about, let's just come up with this working or use this working definition. So, for me, spirit is the essence of life that is embodied in every living being, but not limited to this material world. So, yes, everything living and breathing, every sentient being embodies spirit. But yet it's not limited to the embodiment in this mortal or material world. Having said that, I encourage each of you to consider what is spirit for you and begin to frame your own working definition. Let me note that for this study, we will not, for the most part, use Christian or religious language like the Holy Spirit. That is not what we are getting at or after. Maybe for another study that will be important to do, but not for the purposes of this study. As we study over the next few weeks, it will become more apparent that the concept of spirit and spirituality that we are exploring is not rooted in any religious doctrine or dogma. Some refer to this idea of spirit, or this way of talking about spirit, as secular spirituality. I prefer not to use that term. I simply refer to spirit or spirituality. You choose how you frame it. So let's take the next few minutes as we pursue the next question. What is intelligence? What is intelligence? What do you think? What is intelligence? The dictionary, Webster's dictionary, says it's the ability to learn or understand or to deal with new or trying situations. To reason. Also the skilled use of reason. The ability to apply knowledge, to manipulate one's environment, or to think abstractly as measured by some objective criteria. The intelligence quotient, or the IQ, measures a person's level of comprehension, one's ability to understand, and the knowledge gained based on one's ability to understand. So the acquisition of knowledge, they're able to comprehend or understand it, what you have learned. It is the standard most widely used in our country today to assess general intelligence, according to Psychology Today. Intelligence, though, is not a function necessarily of just formal education alone. Passing standardized tests have become a measure of one's intelligence, but it's the ability to store information and recall as needed may be a kind of intelligence, yes, but it does not necessarily measure one's comprehension or understanding. I want you to underscore that. Understanding is a deeper reality. It's a more complex idea. It is more difficult to assess without observing the application of the knowledge attained. And even then, comprehension or understanding may not be as apparent as it may seem. I'll go to a Bible verse here from the wisdom teachings in the Hebrew Bible. Proverbs 4:7 says, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding. Wisdom is not sufficient, it would seem, that having wisdom and in the scriptures described, or others have described it as the application of knowledge. So if you have wisdom, wisdom teaches you, allows you to know how to apply the knowledge, that the wisdom or the knowledge that you have. But it doesn't seem from the scripture that wisdom in itself is sufficient. You can apply your knowledge, I would suggest, based on duplication or parroting what you have seen, like a parrot. You hear it, you say it. You see it, you do it. You observe someone else doing it, you do it. You echo what you hear. You repeat what you've heard. Yet, you can do all of this like the parrot and lack understanding as to why you're doing what you do. You're just mimicking. Understanding, however, is rooted in self-knowledge and therefore self-understanding. Let's just pause there and breathe for a moment. We always see the other through the prism of our own self. Always, I would argue, and without exception, these are the glasses through which one views the world. And it's a medium that distorts, slants, and colors whatever we view. Meaning that none of us can ever has a purely objective view of anyone or anything. Everything we see, hear, taste, smell, touch, we do it through the lens of our own subjectivity. Therefore, it is slanted by our subjectivity. Understanding one's self-distortion and limited view based on one's positionality or standpoint, once you understand this, then you can better comprehend and understand the other. But that understanding proceeds from a self-understanding of your limitations and your limited view. Okay, let's move on. EQ, or emotional intelligence. You may have heard of this. It has become more popularized within the last, say, 30 years or so. It's a type of intelligence that is defined as an ability to monitor and regulate one's own and others' emotions. Breathe. And we're going to do a lot of this pausing to breathe here. And just give me one moment. We're going to take a pause as you continue to breathe. Pausing to breathe is very important. It's really undergirds, and you'll see this as we develop this study, it undergirds what this whole conversation is about. So let's talk about this idea of emotion. emotional intelligence. Webster defines emotion as the effective aspect of consciousness or feeling, which is feeling. The affect of consciousness, which is feeling. Let's look a little deeper at the word emotion. By removing the E, let's take the E off because the root word is motion. And let's examine the root word, motion, which is defined as an act, process, or instance of changing place, movement, an active or functioning state or condition, an impulse or inclination of the mind or will. Emotional intelligence, then, must include a self-understanding of one's state of being, impulses, and inclinations. So let me ask you this. Do you self-monitor and self-regulate your impulses, inclinations, and will? That's a moment to breathe. Do you? Emotional intelligence requires one to be able to adapt to changing situations and circumstances with an understanding of why you are doing what you're doing. As you monitor and regulate your energy or emotional responses and tenor, how elevated you become. In other words, emotional intelligence is one's ability to monitor and regulate one's energetic movement and then course correct as necessary based on an understanding of one's behavior and one's responses to environmental forces, the external world outside of yourself. To be emotionally intelligent doesn't mean that you have attained a certain level of emotional maturity, that you don't let things bother you. That's not what I'm saying. Or that you do not respond to situations with an outward expression or emotions that are sometimes all over the place. Or even that you are always in control of your feelings. Because that is not necessarily going to happen. I still struggle in that area, and you know, maybe there's some out there that don't. I haven't met them yet, but that's not what I'm suggesting here. What I am offering is that to be emotionally intelligent requires you to be aware, have a self-understanding of your impulses and inclinations and your state of being at any given time. But it is also important that you're able to course correct. And you only course correct when you got off course. You don't need to course correct if you're always doing it right. You course correct when you get off course. That's the important piece to that definition. Okay, let's move on to the finale here. Okay, then, what is SQ or spiritual intelligence? This is a moment to just breathe. Take a sip of your coffee, your tea, your juice, a bite out of your bagel, and breathe. What is spiritual intelligence? Okay, let's go. I offer this. It is a capacity that one possesses for both self-awareness and integration. So self-awareness here I'm suggesting is the speed and accuracy that one possesses for recognizing truth from falsehood within oneself. Woo! You got to breathe on that. I have to breathe on that. One of my um, youngin psychology experiences, which I was able to get a greater and more depth awareness of some years ago when I took a course in grad school on young psychology. I would have these reoccurring dreams, different in some aspect, but always the same dream. And in each dream, there would be, usually it's a tiger, occasionally it would be a lion, but most often it was a tiger, a huge full grown tiger, in my house with me. Sometimes in my bedroom, sometimes in my living room, whatever part of the house I was in, it was there. And I was never afraid of the tiger. I didn't feel no sense of fear in the dream. I had no trepidation or alarm until and unless my children or family members, primarily my children, would come into the room. Then I was concerned, and in the dream I wasn't quite sure because the tiger never appeared to be threatening. It never appeared to be hostile, but yet it's a tiger. And by nature, we know what a tiger is and does. And I had this dream repeatedly for I think several years prior to taking this course on Jungian psychology. And in this course, I was able to explore this dream through the writings of Jung, and I wrote about it in my culminating paper for that particular course. And essentially, it gave me a deeper insight and awareness to my own self, not in a fearful way, but to my own power within. That power within me, that thing within me that is very powerful, that I live with, that fire, that energy, that life force, that breath that I live with and carry with me. How powerful it is. But we know power can be used to give life, to nurture life, to comfort and restore life, to protect life. It can also be used to destroy life. And so becoming aware, self-aware, was to awaken me to that power within myself. And that my responsibility goes back to a lesson I learned from my mom when I was a very little girl. I always had what she said was a fiery temper. I mean, I could explode like that. And that temper was like striking a match and pouring gasoline on it. It was explosive. And so she talked to me about being able to harness that and control that, but I never understood that. This dream and this course heightened my self-awareness of my own power. Not to repress it, not to fear it, but to understand it and to regulate and monitor and integrate it within myself with my own truth of reality and with a misguided notion of myself. So one's self-awareness is the speed and accuracy one possesses for recognizing truth from falsehood within oneself. Not about looking at the other and saying they are a liar, they lied, they're not truthful, or this one or that one tells lies, they don't know and understand the truth. It's always about What's how do you within yourself recognize truth from falsehood about yourself? Yourself. That's a whole different way of interrogating life through the lens of inwardly looking at yourself. Two, we got to move on. Integration, then, is the speed and accuracy one possesses for embodying self knowledge. Meaning that once you become aware that you are driving the car, you're the driver, and this car can go up to 180 miles an hour, and that your foot is on the accelerator, you have the ability and you have the responsibility of braking, stopping, reversing, slowing down, or accelerating. Because your actions impact and affect others. You understand that your life is a moving vehicle. It's dynamic. And it can explode on others, or it can shower others in a life-sustaining and supporting way. So how quickly are you able to hit the brakes, accelerate, pull back? How quickly can you integrate within yourself and separate falsehood from truth, and then use that to self-monitor, regulate, and control your own energy? Both intellectual intelligence, IQ, and emotional intelligence helps one to understand the how of life. The how of life. How do I live day to day and adapt to a sometimes hostile environment? At worst, and at best, a challenging environment. SQ, on the other hand, deals with the why of life. Why do I exist? It deals with the nature of reality and underlies all existence, not just your own. It expands our understanding of reality to not just my truth, because there's a truth that lies beneath your or my truth. That truth is universal. That truth lies beneath all individualized perceptions of truth and is the substratum of our existence. In this world that we're in as it exists today, it at times seems like we have run amok. Meaning that there's this mass psychological assault on our collective consciousness or our sense of being and sensibilities. Sometimes it just feels like we cannot stop the madness. That we're in this cesspool of myths and disinformation. And we cannot filter out externally. And the real challenge is that it's infecting us all in a way that is getting deep within our nervous system, in our cells, in our blood flow, and it's airborne, it would seem. We're bombarded with messages that tell us not to believe what we know to be true and to believe what we know is not truthful. And we are forgetting how to sort out, distinguish, and integrate within ourselves the truth, because we've lost, I would argue, a sense of our own self. Self-knowledge is what many may argue we are lacking today. In scripture, as we wind down today, it references in the Christian scriptures, it references this idea of, or the phrase, the spirit of truth. I believe that's John 16:13. But it also talks about what it references as a lying spirit. 1 Kings 22:23. I would suggest that spirit is what is real. It is existence embodied in earthly vessels, but existing independent of earthly vessels. It's not a personality or a representation of a human form. It's not a he or a she. Yet it embodies both masculine and feminine, which is not he or she. It is not a representation of a man. We call that man Jesus, Buddha, uh, Krishna, whatever. It's not representative of any person. But it's beyond that. But as intelligence, spirit gives us access to that ability to facilitate the integration between IQ and EQ. Spirit as an intelligence brings about self-awareness to the recipient. Spirit as an intelligence clears the lens of yourself so that you can see yourself more clearly, and because of that you can then see others more clearly. There's no other way to distinguish our external world except we are able to clean the lens of what we're looking through. So as we conclude today, let's take a breath. And let me summarize what we have shared. So we started by saying our working definition of spirit is the essence of life that is embodied in every living being, but not limited to this material world. We said that the intelligence quotient measures a person's level of comprehension, ability to understand, and the knowledge gained. We said understanding points to a deeper reality. Understanding is rooted in self-knowledge and therefore self-understanding or self-awareness. We said the emotional quotient or emotional intelligence or EQ is a type of intelligence that is defined as an ability to monitor and regulate one's own and others' emotions. In other words, EQ is one's ability to monitor and regulate one's energetic movement and then course correct as necessary based on an understanding of one's behavior and response to environmental forces. We talked about SQ, or spiritual intelligence, being about the why, quote unquote, of life that helps you to develop a capacity based on reality for self-awareness and integration. So next week, what we will discuss is this. Why is spiritual intelligence important to know about? Why? That's a big question. All this mumbo jumbo. Why should I care? Why do I need to know? I'll share with you next week why corporate America finds the concept of spiritual intelligence important. And what does spiritual intelligence hold for political as well as personal future in our society? Let me leave you with this for today. Another one of my favorite scholars, authors, Leila Fernandez, who has done extensive research on democratic politics and inequality. She did an in-depth study of contemporary India to inform the dynamics of political and economic and social change. And she authored a book called Transforming Feminist Practice: Nonviolence, Social Justice, and the Possibilities of a Spiritualized Feminism. And I'm quoting from her in this book. She says, social transformation requires in explicit engagement with questions of spirituality. We're going to stop here. We're going to explore this more next week. Thank you for joining the discussion today. I invite you to tune in next week, next Saturday morning, for part 2 of What is Spiritual Intelligence. I'm Reverend Lady Mother Saundra Addison-Britto. Be well, and I'll see you next week.